America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and I'm going to talk to you right now about the little kerfuffle that Joseph Epstein found himself in. 83-year-old Joseph Epstein. I like Joseph Epstein. I'm a fan of Joseph Epstein. I'll put the cards on the table just at the beginning. I've been reading this guy for 20 years now, and he's very good at writing essays and short stories. His book of short stories, Fabulous Small Jews, is a wonderful collection of short stories. It's glorious. I could not write. He's very good at writing. And he said that Jill Stein should just not call herself Jill Biden should not call herself a doctor because doctors help people. And you have an ED, and what does that mean? And a lot of people say that's misogynist. But since I've actually read Joseph Epstein's work for like decades, he has been going hard at academics for decades, and the pretensions that go along with academics. He wrote a eulogy for Mortimer Adler that is stunning. Just Google it, Mortimer Adler, the great bookie, because Mortimer Adler was like one of these guys who pushed everyone should read the great books. And here, I'll put together a series of great books for your kids to read. And he worked for Adler for a while and wrote this eulogy called The Great Bookie, which is searing. And it makes anything he said about the Joe Biden just look like, like nothing, right? So he's a very good writer. I mean, there's one line in one of the books that sticks with me. I did some doctoral work at the University of Chicago in political science before that kind of imploded. And he once called the American Political Science Association conference a big old zoo where all of the animals are squirrels. Right? So I thought that was funny because he's a funny guy. He writes very well. Like I said, read the eulogy of Mortimer Adler, the great bookie, and you'll see what I mean. But also read Fabulous Small Jews. Read his book on snobbery. His book on snobbery is very good. His book on friendship is so-so. But his book on snobbery is very good. And he wrote a piece on maybe that Jill Biden shouldn't call herself a doctor. So what does that mean, right? So titles are stupid in the U.S. Titles are stupid in general, but they're kind of especially stupid in the U.S. because, like a lot of our discourses, they're institution specific, or they should be institution specific, right? When I call you a doctor, that makes sense in a hospital. If you're a doctor and you expect your mechanic to call you a doctor while your mechanic's working on your car at the mechanic shop, then you're just a pretentious idiot, right? You're a doctor because that signals expertise within this institution. When you're participating in a different institution, that title is irrelevant. You just like titles. It's got nothing to do. Now, some people, we fetishize MDs, medical doctors in the US, because we think of health as being this universal that infects everything. And because that's we have a underdeveloped notion of freedom in institutions. So we just think that obviously everything's related to health. So if you're a doctor about medical health, that means in every institution, you're going to have either some sort of expertise or be considered a doctor. Your title is going to be relevant, but your title is only relevant relative to the appropriate institution. We have this problem with human rights discourse too. I might have done a show a while ago about how human rights aren't really a thing because all rights are institution specific. You don't have a right to score a touchdown in basketball because a touchdown is something that's in football, right? All of our rights come through particular social and political institutions that are worked out between the participants. And the right is the ability to be recognized doing something and allow you to do it within that institution. If you think that you don't get anything for being human, you get things for participating in an institution, that humans often participate in because they have free minds and stuff like that. But you don't just get anything for being human. Like nobody owes you the work to provision you food or anything like that. But if you're going to participate in this institution, then yeah, you get rights as a citizen, you get rights as a civilian, you get rights as a spouse, but you don't get rights as a human. That doesn't mean anything. It's a biological designation that means you can possibly screw and produce fertile offspring, because that's a species designation, and you're gonna die. Like that's all being human means. You get rights as a participant in institutions. So if you're a doctor, that just doesn't mean you're like, expertise in everything. No, it's like you should be looked at as an expert in this field within this institution. So if you had a professional conference, I guess you want people to call you doctor, just so it reminds you and them of the hierarchy of your expertise. But if you're not doing anything, then like that's concerned with your expertise, and you still expect to be called an honorific, you're just a poser, or like a snob or something. I don't know what to tell you. So that's just the brief problem with titles, right? They're not universal. They're institution specific. We fetishize the medical title because we think everything has to do with health. And so like a medical doctor is always going to be an expert in whatever they're doing because that has to do with health. But like, that's part of our kind of fetish for physical health. But you're going to go to Aldi? Oh, okay. All right. My kid's just telling me the news. All right. Thank you. I'm going to continue working. Okay. Okay. You want to come? All right. So that is about, titles and our fetishizing of titles, right? So, come on, say hello to the people. Hello. Oh, can you say hello? So, we fetishize titles in a way that we forget that they're institution specific, right? And so then there's this idea that, well, she worked for it, so that's why we should call her a title. That's call her a doctor. Well, that's actually a different kind of fetish. Oh, hello to the people. That's actually a different kind of fetish that we should watch out for, because it's about expertise of a thing, not how hard you worked. It's not a vanity title, right? So we have. Let me show you some other people. Well, this guy has a doctorate in education. You might have heard about him. He is rather famous. And it's not an honorary doctorate. It's a real doctorate he earned. Shaquille O'Neal has a real doctorate that he earned. Real education doctorate. So what does that mean? Well, it means that maybe it's something that Shaquille O'Neal could earn. What does it mean? I don't know. I have to see what you studied, right? So there's going to be there's this illusion that all doctorates are created the same, but that's not true. I don't think. And I'll get into a little bit of why that's the case later. It's not just going to be tied to a person's individual effort. It's not a participation trophy or a finishing trophy for a marathon. Like, it's actually, you have to know things and know important things. And PhDs are a little bit weird because it's actually a doctorate in a well-ordered world. And I'm not just home teaming because, I'm working on a PhD in philosophy, but in a well-ordered world, a PhD is a doctor in philosophy in whatever you're doing, right? So you don't just know the technical subject matter, you know what makes the discipline what it is and not something else, right? It's not just 4 more years in a lab doing what you were doing before as a practitioner. It's going to be something deeper. It's instead of, when we talk about a doctorate in math, isn't just going to be like more specific math. It's going to be asking deeper questions about what is a number? Is the number 3 things or 1 thing? Right? So a doctor in psychology isn't just going to be running more experiments. They're going to actually be able to engage in the question, what is the mind? Because psychology comes from the Greek psyche. A historian isn't just going to be a doctorate, someone who has a doctorate in history isn't just going to be able to have more specific knowledge of like a certain time period and what happened in that time period. They should be able to address questions of like the philosophy of history. What is history? What separates history from journalism? How is history different from just chronicling? Like what makes history what it is and not something else? And in order to know what a thing is and not something else, you have to know its parts, how the parts fit together, and then how it relates to other things. So in order to know how it relates to other things, you have to actually know the other things too. So this generalized notion of a doctorate is actually like, it's actually a deep marker of wisdom if you have it, right? Now, we don't use it that way. Like I said, our fetish for MDs comes from just the idea that we think that health is relevant everywhere. So in every institution that we deal with an MD, we just, kind of defer to them. But that's actually, they're just a doctorate in this particular institution, right? So philosophy is going to be a little bit different because it's supposed to be a little bit more universal. So if you get a PhD, you should have a quality of universal knowledge because you know how all the things kind of fit together because you know how what makes your thing what it is and how it fits together with other disciplines. However, and I just want to end with this, a lot of social scientists are hacks, right? So like if it were up to me, and I'm going to talk about this, it's going to be this week, I'm going to take on the psychologist. Like I think all like these social sciences should just kind of go away. Right? You have psychologists without a working theory of the mind or what health looks like. Well, okay, well that's gonna be a problem, right? So I was in a political science department. I couldn't really think through freedom. So this is at the University of Chicago. So I'm pretty sure that let's take education degrees. If everyone who has an education degree is just kind of like shot to the moon somewhere, is our discourse about public schooling and the role of education in our society going to be worse? Not only that, if everyone who has an education degree and everyone who's ever had an education degree, if we took all of their writings and everything, whoever had an EDD and just banished it all, would we be a worse society for it? I don't know. I'm not convinced. And I say this knowing people with education doctorates. It's because I know them, because I know their education doctorates, that I know that we could do without them and us still do fine. Right? And this is also why I can say that, like, look, if I can go to any MD, any medical doctor, if I just kind of go in and ask for a checkup and take my blood pressure and run generic tests, I'm pretty sure that I'll get, a decent answer. I think it's okay. Any MD, board certified, whatever, can run a checkup and I'll be moderately confident in the results. Just a regular checkup. I do not trust any EDD to run a school. I think they'll just do a bad job because I think most of them are hacks. I think most people are hacks. And like I said, I think most social scientists are hacks, economists, hacks, everyone, it's a racket. And I don't say this because I don't know what I'm talking about. I say this because I know too well. I know too many economists. I know too many psychologists. Hacks, all the way down. And they're just kind of keeping up the racket. And especially, and like I said, if you're a PhD, it's not just, you shouldn't just have more technical knowledge. You should have a philosophy. It's about philosophy. It's not just taking given assumptions about what the discipline is and applying given methods to how to evaluate it. It's actually understanding why the discipline is this and not that, and why these methods can be independently justified besides just being traditional or as a way to get at knowledge or wisdom, right? So I hope I've clarified. And when I was talking about this on Facebook, I got a fantastic ad, and sometimes the Facebook algorithm makes your point for you, which I appreciate. So I was saying, the difference between not all doctorates are, might mean something. and that we kind of fetishize one for the other. And if you're really tied to it, then you're a little bit dubious. But then I got this. Look at that. You can get a doctorate in strategic leadership. I suspect that the people who graduate from that program are going to be clowns. Should I call them doctor? I mean, I guess. And if somehow a woman graduates from that program and I'm like jokingly calling her doctor, am I, because she's a doctor in strategic leadership? Like, no content, but strategic leadership. Like, and if I can't say that with the same face, does that make a straight face? Does that make me misogynist? I would also laugh at any guy with that degree also. And no, I'm a generic hater. No, there's wisdom to be found, to be studied, and it's not just about your individual effort, right? So the idea is that we need to call Jill Biden a doctor so that other young girls can be respected when they get education degrees too. And I don't respect the education degree. Like, I don't. I'm allowed not to. I don't respect the psychology. And it's not because I know too few, it's because I know too many. So when I see someone with an education degree, I'm like, oh, well, so give me some arguments. Like, I will respect the argument, right? And people say, like, well, you need this respect to run a classroom. And I'm just like, I don't think that's true. I get respect through the arguments. And actually, the more informal, the better I am, because if you expect students and people to respect you based on your title and esteem, they're going to expect you to treat them a certain way. And that rarely works out, because I do not often treat people sometimes the way that society tells them I should treat them. I treat them the way they ought to be treated, justified upon, different criteria. And so I don't want to participate in that game where I expect you to dance for me, because I will tell you right now, I'm not going to dance for you. And it's going to be better, and we'll both be led to wisdom for the trouble. Right? Socrates didn't need a title. In fact, if you're leaning on a title for your esteem, then it's really about you and not the work. It's really about you and not the work. And I mean, I'm going to talk about this on Friday when I actually tell you why Maslow's hierarchy is counter-revolutionary trash pushed on us by social scientists who actually are simple or scared. Haven't figured out. It's either simple or scared. But a lot of these programs are trash. And to the extent that we can stop respecting people who just happen to go through, or who even work hard. If it's about the person's hard work, well, they worked hard, they deserve the title. That's not how it works. That's not how anything that really matters works. You don't say to a basketball player, well, you worked hard, so you get to just go to the NBA. No, a lot of people work hard and they don't get to go to the NBA. You don't say to a marathon person, like, you worked hard, you get to, run a 3-hour marathon. No. Like, that's, you don't get an entitlement just for working hard. And because you want to do it doesn't make it good. It's a hard thing to tell liberals is too. Just because you want to do it and you achieve in doing it, it doesn't make it the right thing to do or your achievement worthwhile. There are objective considerations to what you do. You can't validate any aspiration. So, is Jill Stein a doctor? I mean, sure. Why are we invested in it? I think that's a little bit dubious. Is Joseph Epstein a good writer? Yes. Yeah, and his digs are not bad digs, right? So academia is a scam. It's a racket. A lot of people participate in the racket. It's a vanity scam too. So they feel good participating in the racket. Doesn't mean they're better or worse at their jobs. It just means that they're a racket. Look, and any philosophy department half of the people on faculty will have very big reservations about whether the other half of the people on faculty are actually doing philosophy. And that's just how it is. I hope this has been clarifying. I hope you understand rights and titles are institution specific. It's not some sort of ontological designation. And and it's not just some sort of vanity play. If you think you get it because you worked hard and you deserve it, I mean, what? How have you, increased the quality of knowledge in the world in a relevant way? Or are you just participating in the hustle? Because there are a lot of people who are participating in the hustle. Anyway, hope this clarifies the issue. I hope more people start calling out social science PhDs, because if listening to economists will screw up the economy, listening to EDDs will screw up your school, and we can make these programs into something that would actually be worthwhile. But as it stands, nope. All right, take care. Oh, and if you like anything I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.thefunkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, because depending on who you talk to, I'm making myself downright unemployable. And but I think the quality of wisdom that I'm dispensing from time to time is actually worth it. So peace, and I will see you when I see you.